Heroes Like Us is a series intended at sharing comic book characters from various backgrounds and identities. We won't always get everything right, so feel free to make amendments and corrections in the comments. They're always appreciated. What's not appreciated, however, is any form of hate speech or intolerance, so comments of that nature will be immediately deleted and those users blocked from this channel. This is a place of education and celebration. Welcome to I'm Your Target Demographic and welcome to Heroes Like Us. Today we are looking at English comic book characters. We've already done one, so if you missed it, you can either go back and watch it now or after this video, you can go scope it out. So now we're going to talk about a handful of English comic book characters so that you can see heroes like you. So let's dive in. First off, we have Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew from Marvel Comics. So born in England, Jessica was raised on this farm, basically where there was uranium in the ground and it was poisoning her. So her father, who was a scientist and a genetic scientist, gave her this serum that was untested, which seems like a bad idea. Basically, it gave her these abilities and powers, and she was raised and kind of recruited into Hydra, the evil organization where they could use her as a spy and warrior. She did, however, flip-flop a lot, so there were times when she would betray Hydra to work with the Avengers and with other, S.H.I.E.L.D., but then she would also betray them to go back to Hydra, and so she is somewhat of a mysterious double agent, though mostly lately has been on the good side of things. Most recently, she's been in the comic books, prominently featured as a mother, that she was pregnant and then gave birth to a son, and this is surprisingly not covered a lot in comic books, that people kind of just have kids. And then her trying to fight crime while pregnant was actually very interesting and cool and unique in the Marvel scope of things. In terms of powers, she shares very little in common with Spider-Man, even though her name is Spider-Woman. Her main powers are she can kind of shoot this bioelectricity from her body that she calls quote-unquote venom blasts, so she can kind of stun or incapacitate people with that power. She also can create pheromones in the air that make people maybe scared or feel romantic. She can kind of put these pheromones into the air to affect those around her. Up next from DC Comics, we've got the anti-hero named Manchester Black, who is the leader of a group called the Elite. Now, the Elite are anti-heroes. They believe in the right things, but they go to extreme measures to accomplish them, mostly meaning that they will kill villains that they believe there's no cure for, that they will just get rid of them. Manchester Black has two main abilities. The first one is telekinesis, that he is incredibly precise, that he even once gave Superman a stroke by kind of pinching his, the nerves in his brain. And he can also read minds and control minds on a massive scope. And so he can kind of control everyone in a certain area around him. Now, being that he was okay with kind of killing villains, he was imprisoned, put into the Suicide Squad. And while there, he kind of realized the error of what he's been doing. And he kind of decided, I can't believe I've become a villain myself. And he used his telekinesis to kill himself. So very tragic. Up next from Marvel Comics, we have Kelsey Leigh Lionheart. Now, Kelsey suffered a tragic story. She has very many tragic events in her life. She was scarred once with a broken bottle while kind of being attacked. And then she actually died. Now, let me tell you this. The Avengers were fighting the Wrecking Squad, and she selflessly stepped in to help protect Captain America, and she used his shield to save his life. The damage, however, killed her. But Kelsey woke up, and she was surrounded by the Captain Britain Corps, and they basically said, "You're perfect." So for a time, they made her Captain Britain. So she was incredibly strong, she could fly, she was covered by this force field that could protect her, and she had the Sword of Might that could kind of channel mystical energy. Now, her upbringing was a little rough, and so this made her a vengeful Captain Britain, where she didn't hesitate to really kill her enemies if she needed to. So she served as Captain Britain for a while until the other Captain Britain, Brian Braddock, showed back up, took the title, and she took on the name Lionheart. Up next from Marvel Comics is Eric Brooks, aka Blade. Now, when Eric was being born, his mother was attacked by vampires, literally as she was giving birth. And this kind of made him half vampire. So he didn't become full, but he became half. Now, he grew up as a half vampire and wanted to seek vengeance against those that killed his mother. So he trained, he studied, he became the ultimate vampire hunter and earned the name Daywalker for being a vampire that was able to walk around in daylight. He also didn't have a lot of the other weaknesses that vampires had, so like silver had no additional effect on him. He wasn't affected by religious icons. The only weakness he inherited from vampires was that he needs to consume blood. And he found a way to create an artificial serum that could kind of delay this. But if he doesn't get that serum, his self-control kind of lacks and he has to feed. So if he doesn't get the serum and he doesn't get blood, he will die. Throughout the stories, he usually faces off against vampire villains, most notably Dracula, kind of being the king of all vampires, tends to show up a lot. Up next from DC Comics, we've got the character Cheetah, her real name, Barbara Minerva. Now, Cheetah's origin is wildly different across all the continuities, so this gets a little confusing here. In one continuity, she kind of stumbles upon, she's like an archaeologist, she stumbles upon this ritual, kind of trying to summon this cheetah god, and she kind of gets mixed up in it. In another continuity, she seeks out this artifact called the God Killer Knife, uses that to become the cheetah. Kind of there's different stories, but across the board, she is a Wonder Woman villain, usually obsessed with the Amazons, with Themyscira and mythology. So she's almost always a villain of Wonder Woman. Her powers are she is cheetah-like, so she's quick, she has claws, and she can infect other people to become cheetah-like as well, most notably even characters like Superman. And lastly for this video, we have Nathanial Essex, Mr. Sinister. Essex was a biologist in kind of Victorian era London, and he was obsessed with evolution at the same time that Darwin was kind of studying evolution. But Darwin had a moral compass and Essex didn't, and he was kind of experimenting on people, and as mutants kind of came to prominence, I guess, he started to study on them, and he kind of was trying to figure out what makes people evolve and adapt, and how do you become, the fittest. So he eventually crossed paths with Apocalypse, who also has a very similar mission. And Apocalypse gave him abilities. So Essex was not a mutant before this, but Apocalypse gave him all sorts of mutant abilities that he could use. So that's when he kind of became the Mr. Sinister that we know, able to shapeshift and transform and kind of negate abilities. He could turn off someone's mutant abilities, a wide variety of powers. But he was thankful to Apocalypse, but he was also kind of resented Apocalypse. And so he continued to seek out a way to defeat or destroy Apocalypse throughout this time. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the stories that Mr. Sinister is in because they get very confusing and they involve a lot of clones and different timelines. And he has been around for a long time and he has some of the most complicated stories probably in Marvel history. So that is it for this episode of Heroes Like Us. This is only the second English video. If you can think of more English comic book characters, let me know in the comments. And we'll see you next time on Heroes Like Us.